We called our new home Haven. It was a jewel box of a world. We built it from stardust and dreams. The cities were gardens of spun glass. Towers reached for a sky we chose. Everything was clean, perfect, and quiet. We left old Earth generations ago. We fled the wars and the rot. We fled the noise and the anger. Most of all, we fled ourselves. We tried to shed our own history. We told ourselves we were a new people, better people. But a ghost is a hard thing to outrun. The past still whispered in our sleep. The failures of our ancestors echoed. They lived in the silence between words. We were born of escape, not courage. And deep down, we all knew it. One cycle, that comfortable quiet, was broken. A sound arrived from the deep dark. It was a whisper in the unending night. The signal was not from our systems. It was not human, not even close. Our sensors strained to understand it. The signal was impossibly old. Older than our journey, older than our memory of Earth. It was a faint heartbeat in the void. It pulsed with a rhythm that felt wrong. It was a discordant note in the grand song of space. It felt like a warning or a eulogy. It repeated on a strange frequency. Our best minds could not crack its meaning. They only knew it traveled a long way. It had crossed galaxies to reach us. Something was speaking from the graveyard of stars. And for the first time in centuries, Haven felt fear. The Council of Elders convened in a panic. They were the children of the flight from Earth. Fear was the blood in their veins. Their first instinct was always to hide. They saw every shadow as a predator. Every unknown was a reason to run. They called this response the Fear Protocol. It was a legacy from our cowardly past. Seal the gates. Power down the sensors. Pretend the darkness holds no monsters. Hope the whisper goes away on its own. It was the choice of a people defined by retreat. But they needed one person to look. Someone had to see what was coming. They needed a single pair of eyes to be their sacrifice. They did not choose a soldier. We had none. They did not choose an elder. They were too precious. They chose you, a pilot of the Deep Scout Service, a cartographer of empty space. Your job was to find nothing, until today. Your ship, the Stargazer, was small and fast. It was a silver needle against the black cloth of space. You followed the signal's ancient path. You flew toward the heart of the whisper. For days, there was only the hum of your engines. Then, your sensors screamed. It hung in the void like a fractured moon, a derelict vessel of impossible size. It was not made of metal or alloy. It looked like it was carved from black stone. The ship was dead. No lights, no energy, no life. It was a tomb floating in the endless night. Its design was alien and unsettling. There were no straight lines, only flowing curves. It looked more grown than built. Jagged wounds scarred its dark hull. Whatever had attacked it was powerful. This was not a ship. It was a headstone, a memorial to a forgotten war. You docked your small ship to the star tomb. The airlock hissed open into absolute silence. The corridor beyond was vast and dark. Your light danced across strange walls. They were covered in symbols that shifted and flowed. It felt like you were walking through a dream. You found what passed for a command center, a great open chamber with a fading light source. In the middle was a single, high-backed chair. As you approached, it flared with soft energy. Projections bloomed in the air around you. You were standing in a room full of ghosts. These were the echoes of the lost, the last moments of a dying race. You saw tall, slender beings of light. Their faces were calm even as their world ended. They did not speak with voices, but with colors and thoughts. Their final message flooded your mind. They were a species of builders and poets. They had charted the stars for 1,000,000 years. They had never known war, never known hate. Their existence was one of creation and peace. Their story was beautiful, and it was over. You were watching the memory of a murdered people. Their words painted a picture of a great destroyer, an enemy that consumed light and life, a force that moved through the galaxy like a plague. They came without warning and without mercy. They did not conquer. They erased. They left nothing behind but silence. The final memory was from the captain in the chair. He showed you their worlds turning to dust. He showed you fleets consumed by shadows. He showed you 1,000,000,000 lights going out at once. Then he gave you the name of the end, a name that chilled you to your very soul. They called their foe the Silencers, because that is what they created: perfect, absolute, and eternal silence. The captain's last thought was not of anger. It was a desperate warning, a plea, a message in a bottle thrown into the star sea. "Run," it said. "Hide. Do not let them find you." Just as the echo faded, a new alert chimed. It was from your ship, the Stargazer. A second signal had just appeared. It was not ancient. It was live. And it was not across the galaxy. It was here, in our own system. The signal was a simple, brutal pulse of energy. A query, a search, a demand. It matched the energy signature of the attack, the one you saw in the memories of the dead. The Silencers were not a ghost story anymore. They were at our door. The hunt had begun. They had followed the echo of that ancient warning. They tracked it across the cosmos to our home. The tomb ship had not been a warning. It was bait. And we had taken it. You sent the data back to Haven. The recordings, the name, the new signal's location. The response from the Council was immediate. It was exactly what you expected. It was the only response they knew. Abandon Haven. Flee into the deep dark. Find another hole to hide in. The exodus was scheduled. Ships were being prepared. People were packing their lives into sterile containers. The same scenes that played out on Earth were repeating. A people trading a home for a promise of safety. A species that had learned nothing. For them, it was the coward's choice. And it was the only choice they could make. This was not just another world to you. It was the first world you had ever known. Your hands had helped chart its skies. Your eyes had seen its glass towers rise. It was more than a sanctuary. It was a statement, a promise that we could be better than our past. You stood before the Council of Elders. Their faces were masks of grim resolve. They spoke of survival, of pragmatism. They said a home is just a place. They said our people are what matter. But you heard the truth beneath the words. You heard the old fear, the Earth fear. You told them no. The word was a stone thrown into a quiet pond. One single word they had never heard. No, we will not run. No, we will not hide. No, we will not become our ancestors. We will not spend our future living in our past's shadow. You told them of the echoes in the star tomb, of a race that faced death with dignity. They did not flee. They sent a warning. They died to give someone else a chance. And we would dishonor their memory by running. We would prove we were not worthy of their sacrifice. A line must be drawn, you said, here in the stardust of our own home. We must choose to be more than ghosts, more than refugees fleeing a history we hate. It is time we stop running from what we are. It is time we start fighting for what we want to be. Some of them listened. A spark of defiance lit in their eyes. Hope, it turned out, was a hard thing to kill. You needed more than just hope. You needed a weapon. But Haven had no weapons. We had beaten our swords into plowshares centuries ago. Our only tools were for building, not for breaking. So you turned to the one place the Council had forbidden, the archives of old Earth. The history was locked away for a reason. It was a catalog of our species' sins, wars, genocide, pollution, betrayal. It was the story of how we broke our first home. The Council believed it was a poison, a story so dark it could kill our new dream. They were afraid we might get ideas. That was kind of the point. You spent days immersed in the forbidden knowledge. You were not looking for weapon designs. You were looking for the source of our survival. Humanity had faced extinction a dozen times on Earth. Against plagues, against asteroids, against ourselves. Yet we endured. Not because we were strong, but because we were stubborn. Our greatest weapon was never a bomb or a gun. It was our absolute refusal to lie down and die. We fought when there was no hope. We rebuilt from ashes time and time again. We were a species of scrappy, infuriating survivors. That was the lesson from our broken home. Our will to endure was the one thing the silencers could not extinguish. We had no warships, but we had mining haulers. Great, lumbering beasts designed to crack asteroids. Their frames were dense and tough. Their engines were powerful enough to move moons. We could armor them with the same asteroid plating. It was not elegant, but it would be strong. We had no cannons, but we had terraforming lasers. Beams of focused energy used to carve canyons. They could slice through rock and ice with ease. With some modifications, they could slice through a hull. We turned our tools of creation into instruments of defiance. Plowshares were becoming swords once again. Volunteers flocked to the cause. Miners, engineers, pilots, dreamers. People tired of living in fear. They worked day and night in the orbital shipyards. They welded armor plates onto hauling rigs. They mounted massive lasers onto survey craft. Our first fleet was born not of hate, but of love. Love for a home we refused to lose. The silencers sent their scouts. 3 small, black ships, fast and sharp as obsidian knives. They moved with an unnerving confidence. They expected to find a silent world, a people hiding in the dark, waiting for the end. They did not expect us to be waiting for them. Our new fleet met them in the high orbit of Haven. Our ships were ugly, blocky, and slow. They looked like what they were, flying bricks. The silencer ships were sleek and deadly. They danced around our clumsy formations. They probably thought it was funny. Then we opened fire. The terraforming beams were clumsy, but powerful. One hit a scout ship on its wing. The beam sheared through the black hull. The ship tumbled out of control, a wounded bird. A cheer erupted on our command bridge. It was a sound of shock and pure joy. We could fight back. The silencers were surprised. Their perfect attack patterns faltered. They had never faced an enemy like us. An enemy that did not know the rules of war. An enemy fighting with tools and sheer grit. We lost 2 ships in that first exchange, but we destroyed one of theirs, and we sent the other 2 running. It was first blood in the void, and it was ours. We had won the first battle, but not the war. The main silencer fleet arrived a week later. It was a wave of blackness that eclipsed the stars. Hundreds of ships, a swarm of silent death. Our small fleet of converted miners looked pitiful. It was David versus a legion of Goliaths. But the silencers did not attack with lasers. They attacked with something far more insidious. They attacked with our own minds. They broadcast a psychic signal across our entire system, a wave of pure fear and despair. They showed us the failures we tried to forget. The Ghost Offensive began. On the bridge of your ship, the walls flickered. You were no longer in orbit around Haven. You were standing on the cracked soil of old Earth. The sky was orange with poison. The cities were burning ruins. You could hear the screams of the dying. They showed us everything we ran from. The famines, the flesh-eating plagues, the last bitter wars. They showed us our ancestors turning on each other. They projected our deepest-seated cultural shame. They wanted to drown us in our own sins, to prove that we were still the same monsters, that we were unworthy of survival. Panic gripped the fleet. Pilots screamed as they relived ancestral horrors. Engineers wept as they saw worlds burn. The Council on Haven urged you to surrender. They said it was a sign that we could not escape what we were. But they were wrong. You opened a channel to the entire fleet. You opened it to all of Haven. Your voice cut through the psychic static. You did not deny the visions they were seeing. You did not pretend the horror was not real. You embraced it. Yes, you said, this is who we were. We were a people who broke their world. We were selfish and short-sighted and afraid. We carry the ghosts of 1 billion mistakes. That is our history. That is our truth. But that is not all we are. We are also the people who survived. We are the children of the ones who endured. We learned from our sins. We crossed the stars. We built a world of peace from the memory of war. Our past does not define our future. It only reminds us of the price of failure. We are not our sins. We are the sum of all our choices. And today, we choose to fight. For our home, for our future, for the right to be better. We accept the darkness in our history, but we will not let it extinguish our light. Let the silencers see who we are, not just the monsters, but the people who fought them and won. A new strength filled the fleet. The visions flickered and died. The fear gave way to a cold, hard anger. The miners, the engineers, the pilots. They remembered the lesson of old Earth. Not the failure, but the survival, the stubborn refusal to break. Our fleet charged forward. The ugly, beautiful ships of Haven. The mining lasers burned with a new fire. The silencers were masters of fear. But they did not understand defiance. They did not understand a people who could look at their worst selves and choose to be better. Their psychic attack was their greatest weapon, and when it failed, they faltered. They were facing something new, not a species running from its past, but a species that had finally made peace with it. We were not afraid of our ghosts anymore. We had turned them into armor. The Black Fleet hesitated. Their perfect formations wavered. For the first time, they faced a light they could not silence. A light forged in the fires of a broken home. A light fueled by acceptance and resolve. They had come expecting frightened sheep. They found a pack of stubborn old wolves. They retreated, not all at once, but in waves. They pulled back into the deep dark. They left our sky clear and bright. They left us with our ugly ships, our scarred planet, and our victory. A cheer rose up from Haven. A sound of pure, unbelievable triumph. A sound that echoed across the stars. We did not escape ourselves by leaving Earth. We just postponed the final exam. Haven was not a sanctuary from our nature. It was the crucible that would test it. We were forged in that fire, and we emerged stronger. Not as a new people, but as humanity, finally whole. Our home was not given to us. It was earned. We had finally, truly arrived.